Hello, welcome to a new episode of Women's Wellness with Dr. Dow. This month's topic is going to be Achieving Pregnancy After 35, Healthy Mama, Healthy Baby. An increasing number of women are having babies later in life. More of us, more than ever, are having babies starting in our mid-30s. The reasons may be varied, but the goal is shared. How can we stay healthy throughout the conception and pregnancy, and how can we ensure that our babies remain healthy too? While every woman's pregnancy is unique, older mamas-to-be may face some unique challenges that are slightly different, and so this episode is for them. Knowing what challenges might arise and how to reduce risk increases the likelihood that you will enjoy a happy and healthy pregnancy. This month, Dr. Dow is going to walk you through his tips to make the most of this beautiful journey. We can't wait to share the positive choices you can make right now. By committing to a healthy lifestyle, you can ensure the healthiest pregnancy and birth possible for you and your baby. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Dow to our episode. And yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sure it's been a rather busy day for you. So we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule for us.
It's a pleasure. I'm always happy to be here and help out. I know there are a lot of women that I see and a lot of women out there who are trying to build a family after age 35. This is a larger and larger population, especially in developed countries and urban areas. But it's also a trend. There's really a trend that globally that women are having children late. So it's not just United States, it's not just the Western developed countries, but a lot of countries are seeing that trend as well. So looking forward to really spending time with you on this very salient and very important topic. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Dow. May I ask you, and this is kind of off the cuff, but you said something really important, that you see this trend happening globally. I think that the media tends to dismiss it as, oh, women are having the careers, so they're starting later. Do you agree with that, or do you have other observations that you see firsthand from the women that come into your practice?
Well, I cannot just use the woman that comes into my practice as the parameter to measure, because there are other reasons. But the very first reasoning is a lot of women are choosing to have children later in their life. And that is because, in the sense that they're going to school, they're going to college, and they're really enjoying this renaissance of education opportunities. And they are able to go to school and learn some skills and then some ideas and visions for their career life. So they really want to go to work. They really want to build a career. And so when you start go to work and building a career, a lot of times marriage gets a little bit delayed, and a cascade of events. Marriage gets delayed, and then obviously a lot of times having your first child also gets delayed. And so therefore it's a little bit delay on everything at all fronts. So I think it has a lot to do with the great opportunities that we are having to have good education, college education, and going to school. I think that plays a huge role, especially in the Western developed countries. And I think we've seen that more. But if you look at developing countries such as India, such as China, many other countries where women are starting to have even more opportunities now, in the sense of percentage-wise, opportunity going to school, because the middle class are building and increasing in a lot of these countries. And their middle class just swells up. It's really big middle class now. And a lot of children of these middle class, or a lot of these women, offspring women, are wanting to go to school and go to college, get a degree, and go to work or build a career. So in some ways, we have somewhat exported the Western way of lifestyle, Western way of doing things to the East, for example, to other part of the nation, other part of the world. So you will see this trend continue. And I think this trend is global.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think those are wonderful observations. So in the clinics, you and yourself have often individuals coming to you that are seeking to bring their body back into a state of wellness. And in the past, you've explained to us that fertility is not just impacted by physical conditions such as endometriosis or blocked fallopian tubes or other female-related issues. And likewise, males face issues as well, as you pointed out to us. One of the things you've talked about a lot is that fertility is about what we consume and about our bodies physically, and then also our lifestyle habits and our mindset. Can you please discuss that again with us? Because I think that we have a lot of new people in our audience, and it's important for them to hear this as a foundation to the next things that you'll want to discuss, particularly as it comes to being prepared for wanting to conceive.
I think the very first thing is, and especially if you are not single and trying to get pregnant, to start with, I think having a good relationship really plays a role. It really can help. So I do emphasize, especially for people that have a partner who are doing this together, to make sure that relationship is sound, to make sure that relationship is intimate and close, because an intimate relationship often able to raise hormone level and improve and increase the ability to conceive. So I don't really underplay that. I think that's very important. And for single women, it's not too much of an issue either. I think in some ways, as a single woman, we need to also find a community, a supportive community for them, in the senses that they have good friends and they have wonderful engagements on the weekends, being able to have a good network of friends and then always engage with a good social life. I think that's also helpful, and I think that's also crucial. And I also encourage that someone who is trying to, so for example, retrieving their eggs, is not to stop on dating. And if they want to date, continue to date, that should not stop them. So these are kind of things that I tend to, and this is just on the relationship front. I think that's very important in the sense that that intimacy, that closeness, and that wonderful feeling that you get from having a good relationship, I think it can help a lot in the sense of not just, it does impact your physical body.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let us talk about age, and what are the goals that you would like for everyone to get out of tonight's episode specific to age and conception?
Age is a big variable in fertility. It's probably one of the most important variable. In some ways, we can't really override age. Mm-hmm. As much as we would like to override age. Yes. You can't override age. You can, override for a very short time, but it's going to come back to hit you frequently. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to understand and really be honest and conscientious of your age. Understand that age does play a big role in your fertility. In general, as we start and especially in women, as we start with our fertile age and as we start out with our menstruation, with our ovulation process, let's say around the menarche, somewhere on the average, anywhere from 10 to 15 years old. And in this period of time, you start to ovulate, and each cycle, your body will select a group of follicles to grow, develop, and finally to ovulate. And frequently you ovulate one or two eggs the most. So a lot of times in this situation, your body is a lot of times pushing out some of the best follicles first. And so a lot of times as we get older, first of all, we are having decreasing cohorts of follicles. And second of all, we are also having a little bit less quality follicles, and the quality can be seen in miscarriage rates. As we get into 40s, we are really seeing a much, much higher miscarriage rates, anywhere from 20 to 50%, depends on what literature you read. We have a lot more genetic issues. And so therefore, again, it's always best to obviously trying to get pregnant much earlier on. If you can help it, I often say that the best age is, if you can, try to do it before 30 years old, if it's possible. In the Western world, that is increasingly more difficult. And a lot of times you just don't find a partner before 30 years old. And sometimes it's just very difficult. So you need to understand that. So a lot of times nowadays, there are some opportunity to freeze your egg. And I think the egg freezing process and the technology is improving as time goes on. I think it's going to improve even more. So I think that's a very optimistic and very forward-looking thing that we can do for some of our women, is to freeze some of these eggs. Now, beyond that, I think when you are trying to when you go beyond 35 and you still don't have partners, I think one of the biggest issue for a lot of women at that time is, should I freeze eggs? And if I need to freeze eggs, should I move forward? And a lot of time I ask them to think about, how about the possibility of freezing embryos? And the reason being, yes, of course, you want to always to have the child with the father that you would like to be with. And but a lot of times what happens if that doesn't work out? And would you still want to have a child without a father, or basically doing it yourself? So these are kind of very important questions that you have to ask. And I always suggest that you seek a counselor who really work in this field and understand your economics, understanding your financial needs, as well as your family building needs, because a lot of times there's some women can handle it and some women just economically cannot handle. So money does play a huge role in this as well. But if there's a possibility, and if everything seems to be workable, obviously, having a frozen embryo probably going to be a little bit better than freezing eggs in the same age time. So I do recommend that for definitely some women that I see. Now, having said that, I think when you get closer to 35 to 38, you still can work and trying to do things naturally. When you start to go beyond 38, you really want to boogie. You want to get going here. You don't want to delay anymore. This is where I often use the term, we are throwing the kitchen sink at you. Okay, we're going to do everything possible in the Eastern world. We're going to do everything possible in the Western world. We're going to do a combination of Chinese acupuncture and Chinese herbs. And at the same time, we're going to seek out assisted reproductive technology, such as insemination, such as IVF. We should not delay when we get into this cohort. So a lot of times, that's what we're trying to do. Now, having said that, when we treat women that's over the age of, say, 42, 43, and when you start reaching 45, we start to recognize as an IVF in this age group, it's just not as successful. And so you are throwing money at very little odds. So in those situations, it's probably best just to try to get pregnant naturally, or think about donor eggs, or think about donor embryo, or adoption. I often say there's many ways to become a mother. Doesn't have to be just one way. If we could open our eyes to all possibilities, I think that you will find motherhood can be fulfilled. May not be necessarily what you imagine, but it can be done in different ways. So these are kind of things that I look at. I also look at different individuals, because every woman are different. There's some women that just has so much more better egg quality and better egg numbers, or better health conditions at a certain age. And these ones you would advise accordingly. They might be someone that you could definitely push a little bit harder. So it all depends. We do, and I do take, every single woman in the sense of looking at them as an individual patient, not necessarily just look at age. Age is a determining factor, but I also look at many, many other things, such as, do you have regular period? That makes a difference, right? Are you regular period means you're probably having regular ovulation. And so when you're having regular ovulation, that's really, really helpful. Are you,
Can I interrupt you for 1 second just for women to be aware, because some women aren't aware? Tell them what a regular cycle would be in you, because some women fluctuate. It's not that exact 28 days.
Yeah, it's not that exact 28-day, but you do want to see that it's succinct. That means is that if you have a 27-day cycle, it's usually 27-day cycle, 29-day or 28-day. Nobody really have an exact day, but it shouldn't fluctuate too widely. So for example, if you start fluctuating more than, you're fluctuating 5 days or more, that is not actually a very good situation. So you want to try to see if you can regulate that ovulation to be much more timely. So, and normally we would like to see 27, 28, 29, even 30 days. I think these are good numbers. If you start to get 25 days or earlier on your period, you start to see more declining egg qualities. If you start to see 35 days or longer, you start to also see declining egg quality on the other side. So there's a little range we can work with. But the most important is this irregularity. One day it might be 25 days, the next time you're 35 days. That is something we want to try to see if we can regulate to the center.
Okay. Okay, and then I'm sorry for interrupting you. You had
It's
some
okay.
that you wanted to share as well.
I forgot.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Let's get you back on target then. How about this question? So can you tell us when somebody comes in and wants to receive from you or from the others in the practice acupuncture or other modalities, what exactly do you do with them? How do you take where they're at in that moment, particularly for those that want to conceive at an older age, and be able to now guide them down that path? So we talked about menstrual cycle is obviously huge. What else are you looking for as far as factors, and what would you do? Maybe you can even share with us a case study.
Yeah, I think a good thorough medical history intake is essential.
Mm-hmm.
I usually go through their menstrual history, their medical history, and not at least as well as their any kind of gynecological obstetric kind of history, as well as any kind of major disease history. And because there's sometimes and a lot of times certain disease can affect their fertility.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, someone who might have cancer, who has done radiation or chemotherapy, and that can affect the ovarian function, for example. Mm-hmm. So that group of patients we call an oncofertility condition or concerns. So we look at that separately. People who might have other issues and thyroid issue, for example, or anemia issues, or things that can cause weakening of their fertility. So we want to look at that carefully. Past infections. There's some infections such as appendicitis might cause burst of appendix and cause pelvic inflammatory diseases, where a lot of adhesions and scar occurs for the uterus, for the tubes, and that can impact on the fertility. So there's a lot of different things that you want to look at. So I think it's essential to first look at some of the medical histories, look at some of the OBGYN histories. As men goes, you also want to take a look at their stress level, take a look at their health in general, their sitting, if they sit a lot in their work, if they exercise regularly, if they drink enough water, their diet, all that. You want to look at that and to see if they are actually having a good sperm count, and as well as other parameters. So coming back to women, I think in this situation, the regular ovulation would be the next thing that you want to look at. You want to see, and you want to see a woman is actually having ovulation regularly, because sometimes even with a regular menstruation, they may not be having a good ovulation. Their ovulation might be weak. So a lot of times you want to do ovulation predictor kit. You want to do some basal temperature chart. You want to take a look at if there's enough symptoms. You may even want to do an ultrasound to see how the follicle is developing. So these are some of the things that you want to assess. And you want to take a look at your endometrial lining. You want to look at your uterus and your tube. You want to do a thing called hysterosalpingogram, an X-ray, a dye through the tube to take a look at the tube and visualize to see if there's any blockage in that area. And then you might do a sonohydrogram of the uterus, where you are looking at the contour of the uterus and whether or not there's any kind of polyps or uterine fibroids, ablations or histories or scars in that area, or maybe there's even product of conception that dislodge there, causing scar in that area. So these are kind of things you want to make sure that the endometrial lining is smooth, well built up, triple layer, etc. So these are some of the things that you want to look at right off the back. So these are some of the things that we do on the first visit, and we want to look at their ART history, their assisted reproductive technology history. You know, how many insemination have you done? How many IVF have you done? Well, we look at, you know, the IVF process. We look at, hey, did you retrieve enough eggs? How many antral follicle count, basal follicle you started with? You use this amount of drug. You're 35 years old. You're supposed to get this amount of eggs, and you're not getting this amount of eggs, or you're not fertilizing as well, or they're not making to 5-day embryo, or the PGT is very minimal. When you do a pre-implantation genetic testing, and there's not a lot of embryo that makes it, so you start to look at the odds ratio. You know, like a lot of times, I say around when you're 40 years old, your odds, if you have 5 embryos if you have blastocysts to test, you get one good one in every 4 embryos normally in the 40s, for example. In the 35 to 40s, you should be able to get 1 in 3 if it's possible. That's what we like to see. In the 20s, it's usually...
That's something in our bodies that cause that, Dr. Dow, or it's just nature, the way nature operates?
Well, it has a lot to do with the embryo quality, which goes back to egg quality as well as sperm quality.
Okay. Keep going.
So anyway, we would look at the IVF history and look at the ART history, and that actually give us a lot of ideas, because we say, oh, okay, that's how you stimulate. We see you're having issues there, and we're going to set some goals. So I often tell my patient, listen, this is what I like to see. Symptom-wise, this is what I like to see. And if you're going to do another IVF, I like to get to a point where you're getting this amount of egg, this amount of blastocysts, this amount of PGT positivity. Okay, so for example, our patient frequently have done IVF, they don't do that well, and they have a lot of eggs. Okay, they retrieve a lot of eggs. They fertilize them pretty well, but there's not a lot of mectoblastocysts, or they have a lot of mectoblastocysts, but when you do testing, there may be only, you know, very few survives, or very few are normal. Not survive, very few are normal. So in that situation, I have patient that comes in, told me, well, I've done 3 IVF. I've not gotten any embryo out of it. So that's when I assess and try to figure out and prepare them. And frequently, I have a lot of patients, frequently I prepare them, and I'm able to get 1 or 2 PGT normal embryo out of them. And very happy when that happens. We are jumping up for joy. And of course, you know, I never count my egg until they are hatched. That's a terrible pun, but terrible. So, but yes, but you know, I like to see that, you know, the transfer goes well. I like to see a healthy mother. At the end of the day, we have a healthy baby. That's what I like to see. I don't like to see a woman go through so many IVF process, and they have gained so much weight, and they're tired, exhausted, financially exhausted, and at the end of the day, they're just too tired to take care of their baby. That's not what I would like to see. I like to see someone who is healthy, be able to go through it with their health intact, and be able to have a good motherhood experience.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the emotional side of it, because I think you're bringing up something very important where women that are trying to conceive in general, it's exhausting. So then on top of it, when you're conscious of your age and you feel like there's this ticker that's always running out of time, how are you able to support them in that process? Because it does get very stressful. And, you know, some have a wonderful family support system around them, but then others don't.
You know, I say sometimes taking a step forward means you have to actually take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I suggest vacations. Okay. Sometimes, you know, I often have this stories where people just stop trying
Mm-hmm.
and they go to vacation in Hawaii, and then they made their baby in Hawaii. So, you know, it's like a lot of Maine Hawaii babies. I thought, is it the soil? Is it the food? Is the hula dance? Is the lay flower? It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being able to relax, enjoy, and because it's so exhaustive trying to get pregnant, it's just, you know, it's on their mind all the time. So finally, when they give up, they actually give up such a big burden. Okay, big burden where the shoulder just relaxes and where their body just relaxes. That's when their fertility rate truly, truly actually increase. So it's not to be underestimated the importance of breaks, the importance of vacation, importance of just time to rejuvenate. So that's one. Mini vacations. You don't have to have big vacations. Living in Los Angeles area, some people, I just tell them, wait, you know, go to Palm Springs for the weekend, right? You know, just soak in a nice warm sun, go to the pool, chill, relax,
Mm-hmm.
drink a glass of wine. Just
I,
don't
yeah,
move
that's another
around.
thing. Women panic. I remember panicking over that too, where I was like, okay, I'm not going to drink any alcohol. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And it still didn't work. And it was like, I felt so let down because I was like, I followed everything I was supposed to follow.
It's hard.
It's
It's
hard.
hard. It's hard. I mean, the truth is, I try to have my ladies avoid alcohol, okay? Because it is something that if it's not in your habit, you should just avoid because it's not a problem. Find other ways to trying to relax, rejuvenate. It's always a good practice. Always good practice.
For sure. Alcohol shouldn't be a crutch by any means through this process.
Yeah, there shouldn't be. But I think it's also important to actually find out a way to relax you. How about foot massage?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how about different kind of massage? How about exercise? Sometimes exercise blow off your steam. I just had a patient who I say, okay, you can go exercise. And the next thing I know, she's running 15 miles. And we're like, what? Hold on a second. No, you're doing a little bit too much. You know, cool down here. I said, no, 15 miles, perfect. It's good for me. I feel great. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, I didn't know. Anyway, so of course, moderation, and each patient has different ways to relax. But I think a little mini vacation is good. And I think, you know, some meditation is also good. In my book, I talk about different meditation stances that you can do, different Qigong exercise you can do in the Tao of Fertility book. And also, I made a few DVD that people can do. There's Qigong for Fertility that they can do. I think there's a fertility meditation one also that they can do. And so some of these DVDs, some of these meditative exercises would be very, very good. And there are a lot of things you can do to get some music for calming. So we have some calm CDs, and there's just tons of fertility meditation, audio meditation that you can do, guided meditation. So, you know, do some of that. I found that people who does it, they relax more. They are more relaxed. So I think it's like little things that you do every day that helps. It's not like, oh my God, you know, I'm just going to focus on this. Sometimes focusing it is by not focusing it. Okay. Now, having said that, you have to have a balance. So when you do fertility, you do have to have a plan. And the plan is that, I'm going to let my body run through this. We're going to do it naturally for a period of time. And if that doesn't work out, let's try insemination 2 or 3 times. That doesn't work out, let's go straight to IVF. And I'm going to give about 1 or 2 IVF. So a lot of times you start to think about the planning and give a little time to it. And so that and then that way you can be much more relaxed about it especially when you have a plan to follow through.
Okay. What advice do you have for those individuals that tried to do it naturally, then went the route of IVF? Perhaps, unfortunately, that didn't work as well. What do you say to them then at that next point when they return back to natural means, if they so choose to keep trying?
There are times where you can come back and finish the IVF, and if they really have a situation where their body just can't do anymore, this is the time that you have to be honest and talk about donor egg. This is a time where you need to talk about donated embryos or situations such as adoption. I think it's important to talk about all these things because, as I say again, if you want to be a mother, if you want to build a family, there's many ways to do this. It does not have to be just one way. Open your mind, open your horizon to other means. And I have actually a patient who has done donated embryo, donated egg, and actually I had a patient say, "Dow, how come you didn't tell me earlier?" I say, "Wow, you have to go through this to get to that point." So a lot of times, it's something. It's a process. It's a process. Not every woman will ever be ready for that. So you don't force it. It's not something that's for everyone. But you must offer the option upfront to women and to a family so that they have these options to choose from.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about your book? What specifically is in your book that would benefit women who are over the age of 35 and seeking conception?
In the book, The Tao of Fertility, talk a lot about giving you some, and I tried and work on simple language, write it in such a way. And Dana Herkel, who is my co-author, who is just a wonderful writer, and she actually basically helped me to write this book, as well as all my patients. I have a lot of patients interviewed in this book and talk a lot about their experience. These are real cases, real experience. People really shed some light on their struggle, their challenges. So I must say that this book is really not just written by me. This is a group effort. And this is contains all the energy of people who really gone through the struggle. And I'm just here to hold their hand, to be a facilitator, to be a guide for them. I think they are the people that really have incredible spirit, that really teach me and taught me so many different things about humility, about how to be a better doctor for them. To me, every day, waking up every morning to trying to help these people is probably one of the best job I ever have. And I think I said that before, and it's a wonderful thing. Now, in the book, it also talk about nutrition, talk a lot about diet, and there's a lot of recipes in there to strengthen and tonify and strengthen the egg quality. I think one of the big things when we get older, I think when we are younger, I think nutritionally, we can make up for it. We can eat a lot of good food, and that can probably strengthen our egg quality. But I think when you start to get beyond 38, getting to a certain age, I think you're going to do more than nutrition. Okay, you're going to have to start to figure things out that can really strengthen our ovaries. And that's when we need to use things like royal jelly, glandular supplements, as well as bone marrow. I really like beef bone marrow soup. And, vegetarian patients don't really like that. So I try to find ways to help this really no substitute in the vegetable department to help in such a strong, strong nourishment. I think beef bone marrow is very important. In the vegetable kingdom, I think some of the root vegetables is very helpful, like the wild yams, like the yams. I think that's very nourishing, and I think that's very helpful as well. Eggs are good. Some eggs, I often say the smaller the egg, the more essence it has. So fish eggs would be really good. Quail eggs would be good. Chicken egg is good. I would go for more like the brown chicken egg. And again, the one that's, of course, organic, free-range chicken. I think those are really nice quality these days. Red eggs would be good. There's some brown and there's some red eggs. It's fabulous. Yeah, they have. And then if you don't have cholesterol issues, don't worry about it. Just, eat about 5 to 7 eggs per week for now. It's not something you're going to do this forever. So this is for a short window. It's good. And fish is good. Large fish, such as salmon, such as tuna, such as sea bass. And I think we have a little concern for fish in the sense of mercury. So I think we can be choosy on the fish we eat. I would recommend that we stay away from the belly fat of a fish. The belly fat tends to contain the most mercury. So for example, toro, I usually tell my patient to avoid toro. Toro is a sushi of the tuna belly fat. And that's very tasty. Okay, very tasty. But it's got a lot of mercury. And so avoid that. And funny thing is that there are some testing that has shown that tuna in a can in the water actually has minimal amount of mercury. So I guess the cheaper the tuna in the can is better it is because they take the fat out. So, it's very interesting.
Arctic char, that's a really popular fish right now. Would that be okay for women?
Yeah, that should be okay. I mean,
restaurants.
Yeah, I like cold water fish.
Okay.
I like cold water fish. The cold water fish, cold water fish have to develop a lot of blood to keep themselves warm. They have a lot of fat and a lot of blood. Fat and blood really is good for you, except when you have mercury in them, it's not so good. But fat and blood is really good for you.
Okay. Let's just rewind to some of the other things you mentioned in case they're not sure where to get these. If you can tell them, you mentioned royal jelly. You mentioned a type of supplement. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name. And then
I think I said bone marrow soup.
Okay. Where do they get bone marrow soup nowadays?
I think Whole Foods sells them now. There's a lot of butcher, like right here in Los Angeles, there is a butcher down the street called Cut Above. They actually provide free-range beef bone marrow. They actually cook it for you, and so you get the soup. You can cook it yourself. You just go to a local butcher and just say, "Hey, can you keep me? I really like to cook some bone marrow. Can you keep some bone marrow for me?" And the butcher usually say, "Yeah." I mean, they sell them. They put in a big bag. It's really heavy. It's got a lot of bone to cut up, and then you can get a big stock pot and just cook it in there, cook it for a long period of time. And then you let it sit, and you take the bone out, you let it sit, and you can, definitely eat some bone marrow if you can. But you let it sit, the fat will come up to the surface, and you don't really want to eat so much fat. So you scrape most of that fat out, and then you have a nice soup stock that you can use it to cook for soup.
Okay. Well, I hope everybody listening gets that. So literally they could go to their own supermarket then and have access to this. And would they ask, does it have to be like a organic in that case, since it's the bones, or what?
It's helpful. It's helpful, obviously. But beef bone, I always like to go for the stronger stuff. Beef bone instead of chicken bone.
Okay. Now you also mentioned royal jelly. Where do they get that?
Royal jelly, yeah, that actually is important because there are some places where the royal jelly is frequently combined with honey. Okay, royal jelly is actually expensive on its own. So you want to get pure royal jelly. Okay, royal jelly by itself, it doesn't taste very good. It doesn't taste like honey. So you can tell when you get a real royal jelly. In our clinic, we actually have a gel cap, so people don't actually chew on it. They can just swallow it. But you can buy, I think Whole Foods sell them. They have like container, like a whole big container of royal jelly that you can buy. It's available out there.
Okay. I do the one from the clinic, so that one I know very well. And it's
Yes.
nice because you tell everyone exactly how many to take daily, and it's quite easy to fit in.
Yeah, because it just, you don't want to deal with the taste. So sometimes just some of royal jelly really doesn't taste like honey. It's not sweet. It's a little bit bitterish. So it's probably best just to take gel cap.
Mm-hmm. I have another question for you. This comes because of this discussion we were just having about food and where to access things. And, you know, you and I are here on the West Coast, and it's easy to name places, and I personally know where these places are and whatnot. But what about for our viewers that are in other parts of the country? What if they want to be able to have access to you or to the clinics? Or is there anything, you know, outside of that? What do you recommend for them when they're not Los Angeles based?
Well, first of all, you should find a local acupuncturist who have a good knowledge of herbal medicine to see,
Mm-hmm.
because these are the people that can be really helpful, especially if they specialize in reproductive medicine. Okay. Sometimes there's some training, ND, the naturopath, naturopathic doctors. Sometimes some naturopath has good training in herbology, but may not be Chinese herb, and they could also use some of these people that actually specialize in that. But if you don't have good people locally, then that might be tough. If that's a situation, well, what I do is that I sometimes would do a Skype or telephone consult with particular patients where I would provide some herbs for them to help them. And it's kind of like a telemedicine, tele-doctor kind of situation. And these are something that I would be happy to do with a lot of my patients, but it shouldn't be the first choice. Obviously, the first choice should be if you have somebody locally that you can see. I think that's always a best way to do it. But if such things are available, that is something that I could do to help patients.
Okay, marvelous. I see that we are, you know, coming up on the hour, and I want to give an opportunity for those that are watching to be able to ask questions as well. For those of you in the audience, you can ask questions pertaining specifically to this topic, or if there's something entirely different that you'd like to ask about, this is your time too. So what I would like to request is that if you are on Facebook, Leah Jonas, our operations director, is moderating on there, so you can write your question into the comments box, and she will let us know what you would like to ask. And then for those of you on Zoom, you as well have a chat box at the bottom of your screen, and you can write your questions right in there. The ones I apologize to are those that actually called in via phone. We don't have an option for you in that case, but you're always welcome to email me at marketing. It's marketing@infinity.com, and we will get back to you soonest with response to your question if you want to email it in. Dr. Dow, before we jump into questions, I just want to read to you a message that I see from one of your listeners. And she says, this is from Kristen Dennehy, and she says, thank you, Dr. Dow, for all of your help in my journey. It was 3 years of working with you and your team. Thank you for your guidance, patience, and wisdom. Gwen and Lily are now 4. And
Oh
I
my God.
just, like, it makes me want to cry just to read that, because I think of all those out there that are seeking support, and you're just so marvelous. And it's beautiful when you can see, you know, that there is something at the end of the journey, and these girls are thriving, and I'm sure Mama and Papa are very happy too. So thank you for that.
You know, it's thank you, Kristen, and it's truly my honor. I really see this. I wake up every morning, I want to help more people. I just feel very sad sometimes. I know how my patient feels. It's difficult, it's challenging. I want to make that journey easier if I can. If I have, and I know I'm not God, if I have a way I can, wave a little magic wand, it will work that way, it would be great, but I know I'm not. But my patients humble me all the time. It teaches me so much about not just them, but about myself and how I need to really put my effort into help them more. And so I am honored to continue this process. And Kristen, I am so happy for you. Thank you so much for writing in.
Oh, that's beautiful. We have another question from the audience. This individual would like to know, can you talk more about food for fertility? So I think they'd like some more ideas about specific foods or maybe meal planning.
I cannot hear you. Can you speak a little louder?
Okay, so this individual wanted to ask if you could talk more about food for fertility.
Oh, yes. One thing that I did not touch upon is actually dairy products. Dairy product actually can be very helpful if you're not dairy intolerant. Okay, so a lot of times I actually suggest for some women, not all women, especially if they're thin and if they're malnourished, if they have anemia, they're not overweight, I do recommend milk. I do recommend cheese. I do even recommend butter. Okay, and dairy do help. So I like the high protein, a little bit of fat. I think could be extremely helpful. Okay, now don't think that I just tell you not to eat vegetable. That's totally wrong. Vegetables are very important. Folate, as you know, it's an essential element and vitamin B that's important for neural tube development of our babies. So you need that. And that folate, in Latin it means folium, comes from the word folium, means leaves. And it's basically your dark green leafy vegetables. And a lot of us, and especially mentholated, some people can digest and can absorb just straight folate that well. So sometimes vegetable can be very, very helpful. So dark green leafy vegetables, different color of vegetable that's got carotene, I think that's also very good. But eating a variety of foods, especially a variety of vegetables, I think is very nutritious and it's healthy for you. So I highly recommend that. There are some people.
In terms of frequency, I'm sorry to interrupt, Dr. Dow. What about in terms of frequency? If they're looking for those nutrients from vegetables, then how often daily?
I think you gotta have at least 1 or 2 servings of vegetables almost every meal. You gotta have that. Should be at least your lunch and your dinner. Okay, so you definitely gotta build into it. Yeah. So I do also want to say that people who might be obese, who might be overweight, sometimes doing a supervised intermittent fasting can actually be helpful. Okay, but it needs to be supervised because sometimes if you lose too much weight, you might lose your period. But if you do it properly and you do it gradually, slowly, you actually might stimulate the body's fertility system to be better. So there's a technique in that. So that's something that people can think about. There are other foods that's really good. I personally like food that's got some minerals and things like zinc that contains a lot of zinc. These are kind of your oysters. There's some people just couldn't handle shellfish, but people who can handle shellfish, things like mussels, oysters, scallop, and clams can be really helpful in that situation. And otherwise, grains, if you're not gluten sensitive, and if you're not overweight, whole grain wheat is really helpful. Whole grain brown rice is wonderful. Quinoa, as well as other grains, can be really nutritious also as well. I think a balanced diet is the key. have a balanced diet of grains, vegetables, and protein, a little fat, I think goes a long way to improving fertility. And how you prepare food also makes a difference. And because, like, for example, vegetable, you don't want to cook to death, okay? But vegetables, you don't want to always just eat salad. So you want to blanch it. I say blanching is actually pretty good. Just, throwing the vegetable into hot boiling water, take it out right away. So it gets just a little cooked, but it still retain and seal the vitamins in there. I think that's always really tasty way of doing things. So these are some of the things that I can think of.
And what about smoothies, Dr. Tao?
Okay, smoothies, it's a problem. Smoothies is basically a blending of a lot of different fruits and vegetables with ice, okay, ice cubes. So a lot of time I think the smoothie is too cold, in the sense it's temperature cold, because when you have a temperature cold going down, your body actually brings more blood flow in there to trying to warm it up, trying to digest, trying to absorb it. And so in a sense, you take some of the microcirculation away from your uterus, from your ovaries, if you're always eating cold foods. So I usually recommend my patients to do more smoothies without ice cubes. So instead of ice cube, do it with water, blends with water. So if you do it in a room temperature, I think that's very reasonable. I think that's sound. I would like people to do more vegetable-based smoothie instead of fruit-based smoothie. Personally, I find fruit-based smoothie has too much sugar, okay? And I think that's not so good for you. At the end of the day, it's supposed to be healthy, but if you have too much sugar, it's not gonna cut it. So I recommend maybe mostly vegetable, and then you can add maybe a little bit of fruit just to sweeten up slightly. I think that's the best smoothie advice I can give in a sense for fertility.
Okay.
As what? I'm sorry?
What type of vegetables?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to get into. So what you can do is you can do, I usually suggest celery, bok choy, and carrot top. Carrot top is a really nice, nutritious part. And use those three as kind of your base to start with. Okay, and then you can blend other things in there, and sometimes you can add curcuma, you can add lactose, you can add spinach, you can add I would like to say organic spinach, because we know that spinach unfortunately gets a lot of pesticides and fertilizers. Actually, I would suggest all smoothies should be made with more organic vegetable if it's possible, because you're using a lot of vegetable to blend. You can use Chinese broccoli. Broccoli is good. Some cauliflower, not too much, because some people get gas from that. So you may not want to do too much of it. Brussels sprout, that's kind of hard for your blender, but I think your blender can handle it. Some people actually uses a little bit of aloe vera. Some people use a little bit of artichoke. That depends on your taste.
I was just thinking that I guess the person has to work their way through the flavors.
Yes, some of them, it's not like very tasty. I don't know. You kind of have to play around with it, huh?
Highly nutritious, though.
Highly nutritious, highly fiber, though. You may want to take some of those fiber out, because that might irritate your stomach.
That's true. Okay, let's see. Do you have time for maybe 2 more questions here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. This question is, let's see. One woman wants to know, how can she tell if her fallopian tubes are blocked?
Well, there need to be a test. There is a test called hysterosalpingogram. It's an X-ray. It's basically pushing dyes through your vagina, through your cervix, through your uterus, pushing it up the tube, and while you take an X-ray film to see how it's traveling through the tubes. And if you get a free spill, it looks pretty smooth coming out to both ends, and you can visualize, because with the dye, you can visualize the tube opening, so therefore it's considered that to be an open tube. And so a lot of time when you're trying to get pregnant naturally, you definitely want that test to be done.
Mhm. Okay, and then the other question I see is, what do you recommend for the counterpart partner? So the male partner.
The male partner?
Mhm.
Well, first of all, the guys need to be supportive.
Mhm.
Women go through this. It can be very emotional.
Mhm.
Okay, and a lot of times we need to stay with it. We
Mhm.
stay engaged, stay with it. Even though we might get hit with emotional outbursts, but we need to be there for her because her pain and her suffering, her challenge, what she goes through is enormous. And we need to be there, hold her hands, and do the things that can also help her to become more relaxed. So besides that, we ask male partners to do quite a bit. We also have to keep ourselves healthy.
Mhm.
So we even if we might have great sperm count,
Mhm.
even our semen analysis look like we are like a stallion. It doesn't matter. We still have to keep our lifestyle in check
Mhm.
so that we are supportive of her. So she's eating good food. She's trying to have good nutrition. Well, you don't want to break out and eat ice cream and drink alcohol in front of her,
Mhm.
making her really upset and totally jealous. I mean, you want to support her by really eating healthy also at the same time
Mhm.
so that it's a partnership. Building a family, if you have a partner, it's absolutely a partnership. We have to do it together.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you. Are there any last thoughts, advice you'd like to share with everyone as we conclude the hour?
I think the key here is to be timely,
Mhm.
to work hard, and also at the same time to a balance. As I was saying earlier, you gotta have some vacation, have some break time, meditation regularly. And truly, this is an opportunity to have a better lifestyle. What you learn through this process, it's a challenging process. It's almost like going to Vegas. It's sometimes feel like gambling and you don't know if you're gonna win. And you know, the winning of this thing, it's not like you can win with a bronze medal or silver medal. You can only win by only one thing, number one. You only can become number one. So it's you know, challenging. So a lot of time we have to prepare our mind for it. And I think what I want to end to say is that children are created through love. So it's important to find love in our ways, even in the most darkest moments, or even when we don't feel want to be loved or loving. Even when we are depressed, it's important to stay engaged with love. Find ways. Hey, call your girlfriend. I need some loving.
Mhm.
Okay, give me some love.
Mhm.
Okay, come over and give me a hug, give me a kiss, or do something that can make you feel that you're loved, make you feel a loving situation. I think that's going to help a lot. And I don't want people to forget that. Thank
Beautiful
you.
wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Dow. Really beautiful wisdom. I think this is the good point to stop now for the evening. I hope that everybody has enjoyed this episode. Certainly, I've loved sharing this hour with you once again. For those of you that might have questions later on, you are welcome to send them in to us at marketing@infinity.com, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. This episode is available for replay immediately following our disconnect. It will be available on Facebook in the Dow Wellness Facebook page under videos. You can share it with those that you wish to. And then we also archive it into our YouTube channel at the end of the month. We do still have some upcoming topics this month. Next week, we're back with Dr. Dow again for the telestudy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a call-in only episode, and information will be sent and posted about that. And then at the end of the month, we have Dr. Mao and Francis Lam, who will be talking about integrative advancements with cancer therapy. So we hope you'll tune back in with that for us as well. So I thank you very much, Dr. Dow. Thank you so much again. And I believe we're ready to say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you again for the opportunity to be here and to help. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Take care. Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye-bye, Tiffany. Bye-bye, everyone.